What's going on, guys? It's the Bigs Podcast, episode number 144. And today we are going to break down the week that was in week number 14 and put a bow on this one so we can get to the long week. With me this week from right down the hallway, our commissioner and a three-time Bigs champion, Ben Nisman. Benny, how you feeling this week, my friend?
Feeling pretty good, Joe. This was very, very fascinating week. Things that we didn't expect to happen did happen. And yeah, Yahoo kind of threw us a curveball because typically we'd have a normal week going into the break, but this time we're actually extending our week through All-Star break, and now we have that right in the middle of the matchup. I have no idea why Yahoo felt like they needed to do this as opposed to in previous years. They had a normal week matchup, then we'd have our break, and then we just have an extended matchup for week 16, and that would be 10 consecutive days or 11 consecutive days instead of a break in the middle of a matchup. Very, very strange how Yahoo did this. And yeah, obviously our trade deadline for our weekly matchups gets extended to today as opposed to Tuesday. Now it'll be, I'll put it through tomorrow if someone can get a trade through by the end of tonight. Not likely to happen, but this is very, very bizarre how Yahoo did this. So, Joe, without further ado, please get us through this. Lead us off, my man.
Let's get going, boys. Yahoo's weird week 15 notwithstanding. Let's dive into the week that was in week 14, Benjamin. And that was you against me. And I get an 11-6 victory this week. How you feeling after this week?
I'm annoyed because this was one of those matchups that I thought it was given to me in the fact that Garrett Cole only has one start, Framber Valdez only has one start, Schwarber and Bryce Harper won't even exist against me for this matchup. So I felt comfortable, but alas, some mistakes were made on my end, specifically with the pitching that leads to a victory. Not a double up, but basically pretty close. Could have been a lot worse, but definitely could have been a lot better. I'm not brutalized over this loss, but I'm not thrilled.
I'm certainly thrilled getting away from this one with 11-6. I'm happy with getting a win here. It was 11-7 going in, 11-6 coming out. On Sunday runs, Ben, you had a one run advantage and I took that from you. But I had the batting average and on base advantage and you took both of those. I had the wins advantage. You took a win on Sunday, but you had the whip advantage and gave up that to me. Relief appearances were tied, and I took that from you. So again, 11-7.
And walks given up,
Right, you tied that up. You gave that
unfortunately.
one up as well. Uh, it was 11-7 coming in, 11-6 going out. Close categories, Benji, you win by 5 ticks on the batting average, 4 home runs given up by a batter. Or I'm sorry, by a pitcher. I win by 3 runs, the error, the loss, and 2 relief appearances. We tied in triples, stolen bases, wins, and walks given up by a pitcher.
Yeah, not to mention to the 6 ticks on the whip that gets given up on
Mm.
Sunday. Brutal how that all went transpired.
For my bench this week, Benjamin, I went 1 for 10.
So 100 batting average on the bench. Starting off good.
Absolutely. Yep. I also had an RBI and 5 strikeouts, and none of that plays. For my moves this week, I added Heliot Ramos on a waiver claim, 2 for 4 with a solo bomb, a stolen base, a walk, and 2 strikeouts the day I added him. I added Brent Suter and Nick Martinez for Matt Vierling. Brent Suter, 3 innings, a homer, a walk, 4 strikeouts, a 3, and a 133 on the whip with a relief appearance. Nick Martinez, an inning and a third, an 075 whip, and a relief appearance. I dropped Nick Martinez and Sean Jelly for Enyel De Los Santos, who was horrible in his relief appearance. Dropped Jorge Polanco and John Gray for Jalen Beeks, an inning, a save, a strikeout, and a relief appearance. Jesus Sanchez over 3 with 2 strikeouts. And Andrew Heaney, 5 and a third, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, nothing earned, and an 094 against Tampa. Dropped Suter and Enyel De Los Santos for Lucas Ursig for a clean relief appearance. Dropped Jake Myers for Calvin Fauché for a clean 2-inning relief appearance. And Donovan Solano, who went 0 for 3. I did use all 10 this week. And my MVP this week is Ben Rice. 273 with a 333 on base, 4 runs, a double, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Ben Rice. Gotta love that. Gleyber Torres is my least valuable hitter, 154 with a 214, a run, an RBI, a walk, and a strikeout. The Cy Young goes to Andrew Heaney, who I mentioned. The Cy Yuck to Gavin Stone. 3 innings, a homer, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, a 12, and a 333 on the whip. Gross. Benjamin, for you on your bench this week, you go 7 for 31.
All right, so at least it could have been worse. 35 would be 200, it's 250, 222.
225, very nice. With 9 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. None of it plays, actually, except the runs. The 9 runs certainly are a lot, but again, you lost that by 3. You'd have to figure out how that went in. For your moves this week, you dropped Frankie Montas for Harold Ramirez, 1 for 3 with an RBI. You dropped Harold Ramirez for a waiver claim of Anthony Volpe, 1 for 5 with a double and 2 RBIs. Dropped John Schreiber for Luis Garcia for a clean relief appearance. Dropped Jake Diekman for Kenta Maeda, who was horrible in Minnesota. 3 2/3, a loss, a bomb, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, a 22.09, and a 327. You dropped him for Wandy Peralta, who gave you a clean relief appearance. Dropped Joey Wentz for Hunter Renfroe, 0 for 4 with a strikeout. Dropped Michael Busch and Hunter Renfroe for Alex Faedo. 2 innings, 2 strikeouts, and an 050 as an opener. Lucas Sims, third of an inning, a walk, a 6 whip, and a relief appearance. You dropped Wandy Peralta for Anthony Bender for a clean relief appearance, and Rafael Montero for Tim Herron for a clean relief appearance. You did use all 10 this week. Your MVP this week is Will Smith. Your catcher and my catcher are the MVPs this week. Will Smith, a 300 with a 417, 8 runs, a double, 4 homers, 5 RBIs, 4 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Least valuable hitter, who's it going to be?
Take your pick. I mean, none of them were so atrocious, but oh man, I gotta say it's Carlos Santana probably. If not Soto, but I'm not winning average or on base without Soto, so I'm gonna go with Carlos Santana here.
Yeah, we are going with Carlos Santana. 167 with a 250 on base, a run, a double, an RBI, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. The Cy Young, who's it go to?
Probably Kyle Finnegan.
4
Maybe
innings.
Gibson, I guess, because of the 2
Yeah,
wins.
Gibson did give you the 2 wins. We do like Nestor Cortez's 6 innings, only 1 earned for what that's worth. But Finnegan was very nice with the save, a 2.25 ERA, and 0.50 whip across 4 relief appearances. Needed all 4 of those, even though you didn't win the category. The Cy Young goes to Ryan Yarborough, 4 2/3, a loss, 2 bombs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, a 964, and a 193. Yeah. Over Kenta Maeda, who was horrible.
No. Kenta Maeda changed the game for me. I mean, on July 4th, I'm thinking, I'm going to have to get the innings from somewhere. I thought because Kenta Maeda was poor in his start previously, he might be a little bit better in Minnesota. No, he was worst, and he completely changed the tide of this matchup. On Monday, I saw Dean Kramer out there. He was going to be pitching in Seattle. I almost said Safeco. In Seattle, and he had a great start, but I just didn't want to pull the trigger on Monday, and Josh Haber ended up doing it. But if I do that, then I'm not throwing Maeda, and I could win this matchup. But like you mentioned about Yarborough, I mean, this guy came in on Sunday to give me a relief appearance and was just god awful and gave up the couple of walks needed to tie that category. If he just pitches decently, I hold on to whip. And one thing you might have missed, Anthony Bender, you said a scoreless inning. Uh, sure, but the walk given up was brutal as well to tie that category. So I pick up Bender. You go with Fauché. Your guy did better than mine for Miami, and as a result, there goes Whip on me. One of those categories that could have turned in the other direction. If I don't pick up my Ada Joe, ERA could go to me. Whip goes to me. Walks go to me. This is a whole different matchup if I just don't do
Mhm.
that. And that was a landmine that I hit. I can't be too disappointed with this offense. They've had a 254 that was good enough to win average. A 340 on base was good enough to win that category. So I won two out of the four swing categories and didn't strike out too badly. Couldn't have expected Ben Rice to have that many runs in a week, but he did. And yeah, this was just your subs going ballistic on me. No one, no one in our league had 15 home runs, Joe. You did it with subs mostly. Um, a lot of guys talk about how they keep walking into hot teams. I feel like I've been unfortunately dealing with that pretty consistently. This was an example. I mean, 15 home runs and 41 RBIs hell is going to compete with 15 home runs and 41 RBIs in 7 days? You had over two home runs a day? It's ridiculous. 28 runs by me, that should play enough to win the category. Couldn't get 31 runs this week. So, dude, I will say this wasn't like your best offensive week by any stretch with a 249 average. This certainly wasn't your best pitching week with a 463 ERA. But what it was good enough to compete with my horrendousness throughout the 7 days. It's been a really, really poor stretch for my team for 2 weeks, and it's looking ugly going forward.
Playing to the matchup is how you win this championship. And this is another great example of me playing to the matchup. Yeah, you're right. My 463 ERA and 142 whip were not very good, but they won. My 249 and 314 on base percentage didn't win, but it was good enough along with the other counting stats I got to take down a victory here. A tied triples, a tied steals, and got the runs, RBIs, and homers categories, along with the
Yeah,
errors.
yeah. And one thing that was really that needs to be looked at was on Tuesday. There was a really, really intense matchup between the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. And Vesia comes in, he gets rocked, and then almost gets himself falling into a win. Then they get Phillips into the game. Phillips is terrible. He is due for the loss. And then the offense with 2 outs and 2 strikes. Will Smith hits a double. Then Freddie Freeman drives him in with a double tie game. Phillips off the hook. And then, yeah, Teoscar, there's the single to win the game to give Phillips not only avoid the loss, but now gets the win, Joe. You win by one win. You tie losses. If Arizona can just get one more strike on Tuesday, holy crap, things could have been different. And I just felt like even though my team didn't perform, like I feel like you also fell into some lucky situations that I couldn't avoid. It was just really, really frustrating. And I felt like besides the Maeda play, I played pretty decently as far as what I left on my bench, what could have been done. The fact that batting average was as tight as it was, Sunday night, I'm thinking, I got Volpe and I got Soto. You got Ben Rice. We're basically only playing for batting average at this point, unless someone steals a base, unless a triple happens. But it's basically those two guys versus one. I decided to look at Cary Grant. Volpe gets the bench, right?
Mhm.
Volpe has an 0 for day. That looks brilliant. Soto gets the knock that Ben Rice does not. I'm able to flip batting average because I looked at Cary Grant. And if looking at Cary Grant didn't work, Joe, and I lose batting average as a result, I have a completely different mindset. So the fact that I get that Sunday night flip, I get that stat, it's a little better for me, but in general, this was an ugly week.
Well, I'm sorry I had to put you through an ugly week, my friend, but I am happy to get my sixth win in a row, move myself into third place. And you're in the muck. I mean, we're both kind of in this muck from third down to eighth for who's going to make the playoffs this year. It's basically 6 teams for 4 spots. It's going to be an interesting run here. What do you think your chances are, Benjamin?
Honestly, I'm going with below 50% here. There's a lot of great managers. I'm already having a cold start this week to my brother who's having a hot week. I'm not saying that I'm going to lose that matchup, but in order for me to feel good, I need to double him up. Bobby is extremely dangerous, and I told Bobby that I got to actively root against him because I don't like Bobby, not because I don't want to see him succeed, but like I'm scared of him. I believe in his team. I feel the same way about Jay Ferraro and Cody Pyatt, and even to an extent Henry Collins, that I have to root against these guys because my spot is in jeopardy. So it's really going to come down to the schedules and how well the spoilers can do. And I'm just not feeling as comfortable as I did last year around this time or even the year before. But yeah, there's just so many great teams and they're all performing well. They're all doing what they're supposed to be doing day to day. They're on top of it. And I'm just going to have to get pretty lucky in these last few weeks to sneak in there. I'm not saying I'm done. I'm not saying I'm toast. I'm just not saying I'm entirely confident like I was last year.
As far as I'm concerned, I feel pretty confident in the 3 hole. I'd like to continue to pick up spots in the standings. That would take a really big win from me this week and a big loss from Josh in order to jump into the 2. But if I end up, sitting right around here, 25 games over 500, I think I'm going to be a happy camper for the rest of the season. Got Bobby on the schedule this week. We saw him just yesterday. Happy to have you over to the Bigs HQ, Bob. And it's going to be an interesting week against him this week, but we will see. He says he's run into some hot teams. More on that when we talk about his matchup with Kostas, which is going to be right now. Kostas and Bobby, who went to a 15-5 matchup. What did you see here, Benji? We saw an answer to some really loud criticisms on the Julio Rodriguez trade.
Yeah, you're right. This actually couldn't have fallen in the favor any better for the rest of the managers in this league because there was a lot of criticism, but those that criticize actually benefit from this trade because we needed a spoiler this week. We needed something like this. And of all people, it was Kostas who just made this trade that was at this point arguably the most controversial trade this year. And it worked. I mean, this trade worked in Costa's favor, and maybe it does going forward. But at least for this week, we're all grateful that the trade went through because it knocked Bobby on his ass, and Bobby confessed like that this trade hurt him. Like if it was Julio Rodriguez instead, this score doesn't look like this, and we all
Right.
needed Costas to spoil. So yeah, I'm grateful that this trade went through because it turned out to be as beneficial as it could be for the rest of the managers.
No doubt. 15-5 is the final for Kostas. It was 14-6 coming in on Sunday. Bobby had a 1 RBI advantage, and Kostas blew him out there. And Bobby had a 1 walk advantage, and he gave up many walks to lose that category. For close categories, Kostas wins by the triple and 2 saves. Bobby by a win and 6 strikeouts, and they tied in losses. For Kostas on his bench this week, Benjamin, he goes 13 for 55.
15 for
13
three,
for 13 for
13
55.
for 55. 309.
Oh, not even close. 236.
Jesus. Sorry, Bobby.
236 with 10 runs, 4 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 steals, 3 walks, and 9 strikeouts. Even his bench went nuts. He won all of those categories, so none of that plays. For his moves this week, again, we started off with the trade of Julio Rodriguez and Tariq Skubal coming off of Kostas' team. For Ketel Marte, 1 for 4 with an RBI and a walk and a strikeout. Lamont Wade, 1 for 4 with a solo home run. And Brenton Doyle, 3 for 4, 3 runs, a double, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, a steal, a walk. And then the next day goes 2 for 3 with a run, a double, a homer, and 2 RBIs. This guy was on fire, and we'll hear more about him in a moment. He drops Michael Lorenzen in the trade, then drops Luis Torrens for Keibert Ruiz, 3 for 5 with an RBI. He drops Keibert Ruiz for DJ Hers, which was a waste because then he dropped Hers for Brian Hayes, 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. He dropped Genesis Cabrera for Joey Ortiz, who's on the IL. He drops Jake McCarthy for Brandon Little, who had a clean relief appearance, and dropped James Paxton for Freddie Fermin, 3 for 3 with a run and a walk. He drops MJ Melendez for Willie Calhoun, 1 for 4 with a run, a walk, and a strikeout. And then drops Brendan Little for Edward Cabrera, who was benched on a bluff. Willie Calhoun for Luis Ortiz, who was benched. And Edward Cabrera for Jake McCarthy, who was also benched. For his MVP, it was, in fact, that guy that was in that trade that everyone screamed and yelled about. Brenton Doyle, 524 with a 600 on-base percentage, 5 runs, 4 doubles, 4 homers, 9 RBIs, a steal, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts. The least valuable hitter, the guy that got taken out of that deal, Bryson Stott. 182 with a 250 on-base percentage with a walk and 2 strikeouts. The Cy Young this week is Tyler Anderson, surprisingly enough. 8 innings, a win, 10 strikeouts, nothing earned, in an 0.38 whip. And the Cy Young is the guy that Ben thought he should have dropped by now, Fernando Cruz. 2 innings, a loss, a homer, 3 walks, a strikeout, at 18 and a 3 across 3 relief appearances. For Bobby on his bench this week, Benjamin, he goes 0 for 6.
Easy. Very good.
And no counting stats either. Like, it was just a straight 0 for 6. Yep, straight 0 for 6. Nothing plays. For his moves this week, he dropped Nick Vespi for Justin Anderson, 2/3 of an inning, a homer, a walk, and a strikeout, a 1350 and a 150 in a relief appearance. He drops Orlando Arcia and Justin Anderson for Nate Pearson, who was good in his relief appearance. He adds Carlos Carrasco, 5 innings, a homer, a walk, 4 strikeouts, a 540 and a 140 against San Francisco. Hayden Wisniewski, 6 1/3, a win, a walk, 2 strikeouts, nothing earned against the Angels. And drops Mickey Moniak for Jonathan Cannon, 6 innings, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts, a 150 and a 117 in Miami. He drops Dylan Tate for Will Benson, 1 for 3 with a strikeout, and Hayden Wisniewski for Joe Adell, 0 for 3. His MVP this week is Wilson Contreras. 320 with a 452 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error. The least valuable hitter is JP Crawford, 160 with a 222, a run, a double, 3 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, and an error. The Cy Young goes to the most underrated pitcher in baseball. That's going to be Logan Webb. 7 innings, a win, a walk, 6 strikeouts, a 2.57 and 1.14. With a shout out to Michael King, who had a nice start, and Reese Olson, who had a nice start. The Cy Young goes to Tanner Bybee. 4 2/3, a loss, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, a 7.71 and a 1.71. Benjamin, we had Bobby over yesterday, and it was interesting that he said he keeps running into hot teams. So I went back and looked for the last month to see exactly what he was running into. Well, he did have Mike Sherman last week, who he defeated 15-4. But before that, Jay Ferraro, 289 with a 375 on base. Adam, 307 with a 338 on base. And Cody, 302 with a 390 on base. Yeah, it does hold a little bit of water. He's running into some hot teams.
He has, without question. We wanted to validate it though and make sure that there was something that to be said for what he's dealing with. But he still since this whole stretch, he's had some really excellent Sundays. And although he definitely took an extra stat from Saturday after Sunday, then he goes down from what it was 14-6, and then it became 15-5. Sure, if you look at it that way, then it looks like, yeah, he got dump trucked. And he did. Like, he walked into arguably the hottest team in our league for 7 days without question. But my God, this could have been worse, Joe. When you think about it, the the risk, the cojones that Bobby had and said, you know what? I need to get innings. I need to get strikeouts somehow. I'm going to get Carlos Carrasco and Jonathan Cannon, who I didn't even know like existed, and either one of them could have taken a loss, and neither one did. And Carlos Carrasco had a 5.40 ERA, and he was on the hook for the loss, and the Giants bailed him out. And the Giants, sorry, and then the Guardians bailed him out, and all of a sudden the Guardians won the game. So that right there, that loss could have been detrimental, right? The fact that these guys got the 7 strikeouts needed to hold on here, and the innings, obviously, that's what Bobby was going for. But this could have been worse. Kostas had the opportunity for the 4 o'clock game to start Brady Singer in Colorado. You're not doing it. You're not doing it because you have a good enough lead and you're satisfied with this kind of a win. However, if he does do it, he gets the win. He gets the win to tie that category. Bobby had a 1-win lead. He also takes strikeouts. So 15-5 could have very well been 16-3. Instead, it's 15-5. And I think that's what you have to look at and say, like, this could have been worse. There's no way Costas is going to do that because losses are tied, walks. He's only up by 4. Like, if Brady Singer walks 4 guys, that's very possible. If he walks 4 guys and gives up a bunch of hits, a 1.17 whip versus a 1.35 whip, even that could turn as well. So logical to not start Brady Singer. I'm just saying that if he does, if he's one of these aggressive managers, like, what the hell, go for it. He gets that win. He gets the strikeout. 16-3 is a lot bigger than 15-5.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that Bobby is able to throw 2 starters and neither one takes the loss and they strike out enough guys to hold that category, I mean, that's huge because let's say they don't, just hypothetically, if they don't strike out that many guys and they just go and he's only leading by 1 strikeout, 54-53, then if I'm Costas, yeah, why not go for it? Because I'll at least flip strikeouts. I'm pretty sure Brady Single will have at least 1 or 2 to at least turn that category. So Bobby did what he had to do here. I'm really impressed with the ads that he did use. They were so risky, but it put him in a better position to not get crushed as badly. So credit to Costas here. He's playing with the season on the line. He's 13 under 500. He's got a shit ton of work to do to make it work for the last 8 weeks to find himself in contention for a playoff spot. I don't see it happening because he basically have to win out and not get hit hard for 8 matchups. I don't see it happening, but I appreciate the fact that he's grinding it out. He's making a trade necessary here to get himself closer. And if he does win 4 in a row here, we're going to be talking about it a little bit differently. Oh, you know what? Casas is on a run. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he just cruises into the playoffs here. Not likely, more than likely, even with Bobby's schedule, his skill level is still to me stronger than Costas. I expect him to continue to compete for the last 8 matchups, and I think he's going to end up in one of these spots. Something just tells me he will. He's been such an unbelievable manager all season, and it's par for the course that he's like around 500 in the 8 or 7 spot, either going this way or this way. I believe this year it's here.
You believe he's going to make the playoffs, and we shall see. Bobby, I wish you all the credit in the world, although we've got an important matchup this week as he takes on me. Let's dive to the next matchup here, Benjamin. We're going to talk about Ari Nisman and Henry Collins. What'd you see here?
Well, one thing that's important to note is that Henry is still undefeated against Nismans in the regular season. However, his winning streak against Nismans in the regular season is now over. But that's really the only thing here. I feel like this was never going to be a win for Ari. Ari had the lead the entire week, and somehow I was pretty convinced that he wouldn't find a way to win this. There was several opportunities to win this matchup. We're going to get into how many freaking runs were on the bench and probably doubles as well. My God, Henry sneaks away here and gets away with not taking a tough defeat because this could have been ugly for Henry against Ari. This is a guy that basically everyone has to beat on their schedule. The last place team, who's the least active team. Henry got away with one here, but he should be happy that he didn't take a loss because he probably should have.
Yeah, Ari was up 10-9 on Saturday going into Sunday. It ends up 9-9. The only thing that changes, Ari had a 3-run advantage, and Henry ends up tying that up to tie the category and tie the week. For Ari on his close categories this week, Ari wins by the triple. He wins by 2 steals and a win. Henry wins by 2 doubles and a home run. They tied in runs, errors, and saves. For Ari on his bench this week, Benjamin, 2 prime numbers yet again. It's 17 for 83.
Kidding me? It actually sounds like he did pretty well this week. 218.
205. And then you mentioned it. It's 9 runs, 4 doubles, a triple, 4 homers, 15 RBIs, a stolen base, 9 walks, 23 strikeouts, and an error. Good job keeping the error out of the lineup, but 9 runs plays, 4 doubles plays, 4 homers plays. And though 15 RBIs does play, we're not going to count it because, there's a lot there.
He won him anyway.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. Sorry. No,
No,
he
he
didn't
didn't.
win that category. He lost that category by 8. But yeah, in order to get those RBIs in, he probably takes a lot of them out. So we can't really look at that the same way that we're looking at. And doubles, 4 doubles, that's actually kind of tough. He would need to go 2 for 4 just to tie that category. But come on, losing by 1 home run and tying in runs, Joe, those got to get in there.
Yeah, they got to get there. He actually used 2 moves this week, Benjamin. He dropped Joey Ortiz for JJ Bleday 0 for 4, and then dropped JJ Bleday for Andrew McCutchen 0 for 4 with a walk and 2 strikeouts. So great job.
Great job. No runs there though.
Nope, none there. The MVP this week is going to be Rafi Devers, 375 with a 483 on base percentage, 7 runs, the triple, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, and 8 strikeouts. The least valuable hitter goes to Dansby Swanson, 048 with a 130 on base percentage, 2 runs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. The Cy Young this week goes to Sean Manaea, 13 innings, 5 walks, 11 strikeouts, an 069 nice ERA, and an 092 whip. The Cy Young goes to Sonny Gray, 5 innings, a homer, a walk, 6 strikeouts, a 9, and a 180 whip. Ari pitched to a 264 ERA and an 095 whip. Really, really solid and impressive showing from him.
Yeah, and it's not even like the first week in like I'll say Ari against when he lost to Brian Lebo, he threw to a 257 ERA and a 112 whip. I mean, he's been starting every starter and just, unless it's Sunday, he sometimes is like, I got nothing to gain. But in general, the dude has been pitching really, really well. Even the week prior to Brian Lebo, which would be week 12, he faced Mike Haber. He goes to a 3.29 ERA and a 1.22 whip. 3.29 ERA actually beat Mike Haber's 3.93 ERA. Incredibly, he has been so solid on the pitching side. You go back another week against Jason, he loses ERA to Jason's insane 1.49 over 48 innings. But guess what? Ari's ERA, 2.23 over 44 innings. There is something about Ari's pitching. You go back another week when he beat Frank 13-5. Now we're talking about week 11, a 3.16 ERA over 51 innings. Like, what is it where Ari is basically an under 4 ERA or under 3.5 ERA for that many weeks in a row? Hell, the week prior to it was only a 4.03 against Josh. This might be one of the best, or at least definitely the most underrated starting pitching staff of our entire league.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Joe Ryan, Sonny Gray, Sean Manaea. Albert Suarez. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of household names here with Snell and Yamamoto having been on the IL for as long as they have. Snell, once again, back from the IL, still sitting on Ari's IL spot, so we'll see if he gets him activated now. But yeah, this is an underrated staff. It's just unfortunate that it's sitting at the bottom of the standings with an offense that is so clogged up and so overused that like it's disappointing that he's structured a team in this way where even an offensive juggernaut week, he didn't have one this week, but when he does go off offensively, usually the pitching is the downside and vice versa. So for right now, he's pitching his ass off, but his offense hit 205.
No doubt. He's
even
third in
with
our
all these
league
extra guys.
Yeah, he's third in our league in ERA behind Josh at number one with a 3 ERA, and Jay is second at a 3.29. Incredible. But Ari is third with a 3.6 ERA. I mean, I would sign up if I could get something even close to that. I'm towards the bottom in ERA in our league. So, yeah, it comes down to the management here. I mean, obviously, like sometimes you can get a win by not making those many ads and the players will just do their thing. But we both know that he is not strategically set his lineup in such a way that he can win those stats close. He's won a couple of them, but in general, it is so hard to get it right on your bench daily. And because he's so insistent on playing with a deep bench, he'll never get it right. You'll always end up leaving something. He was so close this time of actually making it so nothing played, but alas, he, more than any other manager this season, has let stats play on the bench, and that's where he is.
Yeah, exactly. For Henry on his bench this week, Benjamin, he goes 14 for 25.
That's ugly.
It's horrible.
Uh, is it like is it like 562?
It's 560 on the nose. I'm going to give you that one. 3 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, a stolen base, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. The only thing that play are the 3 runs here because he won the majority of those other categories. But the fact that he hit 560 on the bench and his team hit 308 with a 348, this team was on fire this week.
Yeah. And it's funny because he pitched to a 5.57 ERA. So he pitched like dog duty, but he hit so much that he was managing to grab enough offensive stats to land into a tie. He probably shouldn't have. He would probably tell you that he managed poorly this week, although I haven't discussed it with him. But to only come up with a 9-9 tie out of that, I know that he wishes that it was better, but as I look at it, it probably should have been worse.
For his moves this week, he drops Garrett Clevenger, Chad Green, and Austin Wells for Michael Mercado. 5 innings, a win, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, a 180 and an 080 in Wrigley. He then adds Miguel Rojas 0 for 3, drops Tyler Freeman for Yanni Chirinos, 5 innings, a walk, 5 strikeouts, a 540 and a 140 against the White Sox, and drops Ahmed Rosario for Matt Vierling 0 for 4 with a run, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. He drops Chirinos for Jose Soriano, who's coming off the IL, and dropped David Peterson for Ben Rortvet. His MVP this week goes to Bobby Witt Jr. Who else is it going to go to but Bobby Witt Jr.? 500 with a 500 on-base percentage, 7 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a walk, 3 strikeouts, and an error. The least valuable hitter goes to Miguel Rojas, 133 with a 133 with a double. The Cy Young goes to Luis Heel, ? 10 2/3 with 2 losses, 12 strikeouts, a 422 and an 084 whip. The Cy Young goes to who is this Michael Mercado kid? Because he wasn't good either. 6 2/3, a win, a loss, 3 bombs, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts, an 810 and a 180. You mentioned it. Henry did not pitch well this week and hit the cover off of the ball. And that's the difference in this matchup is that one side of the ball did really well for one team while the other side did not.
Yeah, no question. And he was able to get away here with something that could have been pretty bad going into the final 8 matchups. He doesn't have the worst schedule, but it's not really that pleasant either. These final eight. He's got Jimmy Dunlap on the long week. I would not want Jimmy on the long week. I think that's one of the worst guys to have to face. After that, it's Cody, which I mean, no one wants to face him right now. Adam, who has the most walks or best on base percentage in our league so far. Jay Ferraro, no one wants to face him. Mike Sherman's sneaky, but hasn't been very good this year. Kostas, he's hot right now. Not sure what he's going to be in the third to last week. And then he finishes with Bobby in week 21 and finally Josh Haber in week 22. Not ideal. There are some wins in there, but it's not the best. It's not the easiest, and it's going to take a lot of work for Henry to get through here. He's over 500 now, but yeah, he's definitely going to have a lot of work to do over the last eight matchups.
Going to be very interesting in the final 2 weeks, seeing Bobby go up against Henry in week 21 and then you in week 22. That could be a nice little round robin tournament that we see the winners of coming out of that going to the playoffs, but we'll have to wait and see when we get there. As for Ari, yeah, it's another rough week. It's another rough season for him as he's sitting down in last place. And unfortunately, that's all we've got to really say. I mean, he pitched his ass off. He has been pitching his ass off, but it's not resulted in any kinds of success here. He is 51 games under 500, 58 and a half out, and bringing up last place.
Yeah, and honestly, I fear that when he looks at these, he thinks, "Wow, I've pitched really good. I think I drafted a very good team. Wow, I've had a lot of good offensive weeks. That means I'm pretty good. It's just circumstantial that I'm in last place." But no, like now this is 2 years in a row it's like this. And I fear that because this strategy worked in 2022, he thinks that, it just takes time. It just didn't work this year. It didn't work last year. That doesn't mean it can't work in previous years. In 2018, bro, and I'd have to go back to see how many ads he actually made, but he was the number two team and he made something like 18 ads the entire season. And he ends up in the semifinals against you. He ends up with a bye. And he looks at that and he says, you know what? It worked that year. And then in 2020 was a short season and the strategy, it worked that year. He got to the playoffs. He lost in the first round to you. In 2022, it worked that year. He ends up in the sixth spot by like a stat over Christian. So you can look back in the history and see how this thing worked. But the difference is this is like without question, the best group of 16 managers we've ever had. The strategy is not going to work anymore. There's too many guys that know what you're doing and know how to manage against it and play by the score and play to the score in comparison to what you're doing. So it just looks ugly, man. And if he's going to continue to do this, I believe he'll never have success in this league again.
We'll see in years to come. You know what? This league is better when Ari Nisman is competitive. It makes it just that much deeper. It's just not going to be one of those years this year. And we'll remember that Ari was pretty much in the gutter from Jump Street this year because he drafted his team the way he did. Let's move to the final matchup here, and we'll finally welcome in Frank Bucco to the program this week. Hey, Frank, good to see you. Glad you're here. Let's go ahead and dive into his matchup with Jay Ferraro, shall we? What'd you see here, Benji?
I thought I saw just a dominating performance from Jay from Monday through. And at some point, Frank made this really, really fascinating to the point where you say, wow, Frank might actually win this thing on Sunday. He got really close on Saturday. He had it just about tied. I think he did tie it at a certain point on Sunday. I never felt like he was going to win. It seemed like Jay was way too overdue for a win. I mean, to not be winless for what, eight matchups or something. The fact that Frank was on a three match winning streak, it just seemed like law of average is going to play in Jay's advantage. It's just that I look at an 11-7 final, and I actually thought going in and through the week, it was actually going to be a much more impressive win, a much more lopsided win in Jay's favor. I'm not sure how Jay is feeling about it, whether it's like, hey, I'll take a win any way I could get it, even if it was by four, or if it was, damn, those were some missed opportunities. I could have won something like 14-7 or 14-6. I'm not exactly sure how he's feeling, but when I see the score get as close as it could and as close as it did, and that he could have potentially lost this matchup, I wasn't looking so carefully, Joe, to see if like even though like Frank was closing in, if there was just some stats that Jay was gonna end up winning anyway, whether it was like he had a pitcher later to get innings or strikeouts or whatever it was. But it just looked scary for Jay for a moment on Sunday, like he wasn't gonna win this matchup.
Well, it was 11-8 going in. It ends up 11-7. On Sunday, Frank had a 1 RBI advantage and Jay tied that. Frank had the batting average advantage and Jay flipped that. Jay had 14 innings on the advantage and Frank took that. Frank had the 1 home run advantage and gave up some home runs in order to give that category back. And relief appearances were tied, and Frank took that down. So close category, again, 11-7, 11-8 going in, 11-7 coming out. Close categories, Jay wins by the stolen base, the error, 2 ticks on the batting average. A win, 3 home runs by a pitcher, and 34 ticks on the ERA. Frank wins by a double, 2 triples, 3 walks, 6 ticks on the on-base percentage, and a relief appearance. They tied in home runs and RBIs. This just seems like it was an absolute dogfight to the very end. And I give Frank a lot of credit for hanging in there as long as he did with Jay. For Jay on his bench this week, Benjamin, he goes 0 for 8.
Very impressive. Wow.
Well done. Well done. And only 6 strikeouts, nothing plays. His moves this week, he started off the week dropping Jordan Romano, Landon Knack, Ian Happ, and Anthony Volpe all to free agency, and picks up Keegan Aiken, an inning and a third, a bomb, 3 strikeouts, a 13-50 and a 150 in a relief appearance. He adds Taylor Saucedo, an inning and 2/3, a strikeout and a relief appearance. Willier Abreu, 1 for 5 with a run, a double, and 3 strikeouts. And Pierce Johnson, an inning and 2/3, a walk, 2 strikeouts, nothing earned in a relief appearance. He then drops Pierce Johnson for Landon Knack to return, 4 1/3, 3 homers, a walk, 6 strikeouts at 8:31 and a 115 against Arizona. He adds Jacob Webb for a clean relief appearance. Drops Keegan Aiken for Pierce Johnson, who had a clean relief appearance. Drops Landon Knack for Cade Povich, who was absolutely atrocious. Gave up 8 earned runs in only 1 inning against Oakland, but he was on Jay's bench. And I texted him, the balls of you to pick this dude up and stick him on the bench in Oakland against that offense. The balls to do that. It got him the win this week by benching that guy, because that guy would have absolutely blown apart his ERA and whip. He drops Gavin Williams for Jock Peterson, 2 for 3 with a run, a homer, and 2 RBIs, and drops Cade Povich for Gavin Williams once again. His MVP this week is Jose Miranda, who went 12 for 12 at one point this week. He was absolutely on fire. He hit 700 for the week with a 727 on base percentage, 7 runs, 4 doubles, a homer, 6 RBIs, a walk, and a strikeout. The least valuable hitter goes to Adley Rutschman, 105 with a 261 on base, 2 runs, a homer, 4 RBIs, and 4 walks. The Cy Young goes to Justin Steele, who Frank traded him. 9 innings, a win, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, a 1, and an 0.44 whip. The Cy Young goes to Gavin Williams. He was not great this week. 4 innings, a loss, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, an 11.25, and a 2.25. For Frank, did not have a bench this week again, so there's no stats to be mentioned here. His moves this week, he drops Seth Martinez and Jalen Beeks for Hunter Strickland, who had a clean relief appearance. Dropped Zach Kelly and Will Vest for Josh Staumont in a clean relief appearance. Added Travis Darno, 2 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. He dropped Dardo for Jacob Young, over 2 with a walk, and added Roansy Contreras, who was terrible in his loss against Oakland. He dropped Jacob Young, Roansy Contreras, and Walker Buehler For Eric Miller, who gave him a clean relief or gave him a clean appearance as an opener, so he only got the 1 inning and a walk. He dropped Hunter Strickland for Sean Jelly, who was clean in his relief appearance. And then finally on Sunday, dropped out Eric Miller, Sam Henches, and TJ McFarland for Travis d'Arnaud, 0 for 4 with a strikeout. Edwin Uceta, an inning, a bomb, a strikeout, a 9 and a 1 in his relief appearance. And Zach Kelly, who did not appear. His MVP this week, of course it is. It's Shohei Ohtani. Who else would it be? 292 with a 393 on base, 5 runs, a double, a triple, 2 bombs, 3 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 3 walks, and 11 strikeouts. The least valuable hitter goes to Marcus Semien, 143 with a 217, 5 runs, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. The Cy Young goes to Ronaldo Lopez, wherever he has just been absolutely ridiculous this year. 10 and a third, a win, 2 bombs, 7 walks, 12 strikeouts, a 1.74 and a 1.26 whip. And the Cy Young, Jason has written here, like everyone else, there's a 4.78 ERA and he only won innings and relief appearances. Benjamin, Frank thinks he's in this. Tell him how he's not.
Listen, I don't have a crystal ball, man. I'm not going to say that he has 0% chance. That's just not true. But in order for him to get in, firstly, you've got to get to 500. And at this moment, it just doesn't seem like it's close at this point. He would need 2 big-time wins in a row. And then in the last 6, still win and get help. I don't know, man. It's certainly possible, but with a lot of these teams playing against each other, like they're going to rise and fall as well. So for me, it just doesn't seem likely. But I wouldn't want another spoiler like a Frank Bucco. Like he's a scary manager because he grinds it out and he's paying attention throughout the week. But there's been a lot of excellent management throughout this season from the top guys, and that's why I have no reason to think it wouldn't continue, right? And that they'll continue to keep going like this. And I just don't see that with Frank. The fact that Frank can't take a loss in the last 8, that's very, very hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for Frank to try to make this. He's 16 under 500 at this point. So, yeah, a
Yeah,
+8 and a +8 gets him back there. But he's got to do that first and then
right.
continue to win while
Mhm.
other teams are losing to get himself in. It's going to be a really tough battle. I give him all the credit in the world for even thinking that he's in this thing, but it's going to be really difficult to get there.
Yeah, look, he's not really atop of many of the categories. One that he is close to the top in is runs. He's second in our league in runs. Cody's at the top with 453. Uh, Frank has 451, and then third place is Jay Ferraro with 444. Jay is definitely more at the top of a lot of these categories. As far as offense, not many runs we mentioned. The other ones actually behind Kostas, who has 103 stolen bases. Jay is second with 88, and third is Mike Sherman with 79. So he's 9 ahead of third place there. But where you're going to be most impressed with Jay is in the pitching categories for sure. He's second in our league in walks given up. The best is Josh Haber with 201. Jay is next best with 221 walks given up. That's really, really impressive. As far as losses, the best is Mike Sherman right now with 42. Joe, you are tied with Jay Ferraro with 43 losses. That's second best in our league. We mentioned the ERA that Jay is right at the top, right behind Josh. 3 ERA for Josh. Jay is right there with a 3.29. And of course, relief appearances. We know he's quite high up there. He's currently, oh, my mistake. He's sort of towards the middle, but he's still just beating his opponents very well in that category. Right now, he is, check that, 6 and 8 in relief appearances. That's actually one of the more surprising ones that I'm seeing here.
Yeah. Yeah, I would expect him to be a lot better in that particular category. But there again, he did just lose to Frank this week, 22-21. So
Right, right. That's definitely part of it. In the saves category, he is 8-4 with two ties against opponents.
mhm.
And in total, he's second in our league with 69 saves. The best is Mike Haber with 73. And then the third best is actually me with 60 saves. The sad part is, even though I'm third place, I'm only 7-6 with one tie in that category. That's a big part of my problem here, is that I've been walking into hot teams when they're closing a lot of games and losing that stat by one or two when I could have beaten a lot of other guys. Enough about me. Jay Ferraro is a playoff team for me. Even with this 8-week winless streak, I think right now, at least I feel like, Joe, that he's in a very, very strong position to finish. Here's how his schedule ends. He's got Jason Ashby in the long week. Not ideal. That's not an ideal matchup, but Jason's been struggling often. And I think that's a very favorable guy to have in a long matchup, with all due respect to Jason. I think if I'm Jay, I sign up for that. But
Oh
then
yeah.
Mike Haber, Brian Lebo, Henry Collins, me, Ari Nisman, and then Jimmy Dunlap, and finally Cody is how he finishes. There's a lot of W's in there, Joe. There's a lot of W's. It's hard for me to believe that Jay is just going to tank for the last 8 weeks. I think just like you, just like the Haber brothers, Jay Ferraro is in this year.
I'll be interested to see if he can finish this fight. I mean, he's got, like you said, 8 weeks left and a pretty favorable match, a pretty favorable schedule. The one that scares me is that final matchup against Cody. That could be a play-in game or potentially for seeding here as things shake out. But it'll be interesting to see exactly how this goes. As for Frank, man, congratulations on a great season. I don't think you're in it either, but I think it's going to be a hell of an out for you to be up against the remainder of your schedule and be spoiling teams as we go. Do you have his schedule? Happen to have his schedule right in front of you, or could you pull it up
Um,
here
yeah,
momentarily?
no problem. Here it is. It's Sherman now, which is very beneficial, and Kostas next. I think I'd want to face Kostas after all the streak that Kostas is having. You'd think that by the
Mhm.
time we're past All-Star break, Kostas would have cooled down by then. So it's Mike Sherman, then Kostas, then Frank faces Bobby, Josh, Joe, Jason, Mike Haber, and Brian Lebo. It's a good month of pain that he could be experiencing, or even 5 weeks. It's Bobby, Josh, Joe, Jason, Mike Haber.
That's a
Yikes. Yeah,
gauntlet. That's a
it's
gauntlet, and that's where
it's
his
a good,
season is. If he can
yeah.
win 4 out of those 5, he's in it.
Yeah, no question. It's just that, when you look at the first part, what he had to do with the first 7 weeks, it was a win on Costas, then a loss to Bobby, a win, barely grabbed Josh, he barely grabbed it from Josh. 11-10 was the final. He beat you 12-8, and then a
Mhm.
13-5 loss to Jason, a 14-4 loss to Mike Haber, and then a 14-6 loss to Brian Lebo. So it was a mixed bag, man. He won three, he lost four. And
Mhm.
to think that he'd have to beat you twice. He'd have to grab a win from Jason. He'd have to beat Josh twice. Uh, I just don't know. I mean, he'd have to beat Bobby. He'd have to avoid losing to Bobby twice. Like all these things, it just seems like a lot has to fall in his favor. I respect the crap out of Frank, the fact that he's very like. I wish that I had his. I'm not trying to say this in like an insulting way, but almost like his ignorance. Like that he just like I don't know either way. All I know is one speed. I'm at go. I'm going for it. No
Mhm.
matter who I'm playing, I believe I can take that. Whereas if I'm in his position, I'm just like, my season, but I'm having fun and I'm just going to spoil these next 8 weeks and try to ruin somebody's season. That's not his mentality, and I respect it,
Nope.
Joe.
Yeah, he's got the opportunity to spoil. He's got the opportunity to keep somebody out of the playoffs. He's just got to win those weeks against those teams. He could cost somebody a bye. He's got both the Habers. He's got me. He's got a couple of other teams in contention. He could knock
Yeah,
somebody
Bobby.
out. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see how he finishes up the season. Benjamin, let's get to our managers of the week, my friend. Who do you have at number 3?
There was a lot of guys that you could argue should be in this thing, should be considered here. Man, the first one I'm going with is Jay Ferraro. It was such a tough matchup for him. He knew that he needed to find a way to get a win, and Frank really made him sweat, and he had to really kind of work his way. And you mentioned the decision to make that benching the way he did. You can't not acknowledge that. So getting out of this winless streak was so critical for him to get in the right direction. Jay Ferraro's number 3 for me.
Yeah, very nice win for Jay. I'm gonna have him a little bit higher up right now. I've got Mike Haber in the number 3 spot with a 13-7 win over Cody. Just keeping that train rolling in the number 1 spot and keeping yourself at arm's length from everybody else behind you. What a great week for Mike. Congratulations, you're number 3. Ben, who's got number 2 spot for you, my friend?
Gotta go with the biggest upset of the week. It's Kostas Paragios here for me at number 2. Yeah, played it about as good as he can. Was making the right decisions on who to play, who to bench. Basically, nothing played. If I have to make one criticism, it's hard to criticize because I wouldn't have done it either. This could have been 16-3 instead of 15-5, but in all, I mean, that trade became humongous, not just for him, but the entire league was affected beneficially.
No doubt. No doubt. Kostas, spoiler alert, is my number 1 manager of the week just for that trade and the way it worked out and moves he made during the week to take down Bobby. My number 2 is Jay Ferraro. We talked about it earlier. Just grinding out a win over Frank is never easy. And when you've lost, or not won in almost 2 months, it's good to get off the schneid, take a win from Frank, and get yourself right toward the playoffs here with 8 weeks to go. Who do you got at number 1, my friend?
Yeah, I'm going with Mike Haber. I know it was your number 3, but I mean, these these numbers are just so damn impressive with the 279 average, a 272 ERA, a 1.01 whip. Um, he had 8 stolen bases. He wins home runs by 112-11. He's playing against one of the hotter teams all season in Cody. And Mike was like, I'm the champion, and I've been in this league way longer than you, dude. And I'm just about going to double you up. And he almost did that. He was really, really impressive. 24 relief appearances here. Just the stats across the board. You could tell he was just playing to the score. And with 6 days, a 5-2 record, wins to losses. I mean, everything. I just felt like he continued to play to the score. And there was a point where I was like, oh no, Cody's going to come back. But sure enough, Mike held it down on Sunday.
No doubt. Mike did an incredible job and remains at the top of the standings yet again. It is his show this year, and he is the ringleader for this merry group of misfits going toward the playoffs. Benji, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
It's a privilege, man. I felt bad with some of these other great managers who did well this week. I mean, you think about Jimmy with an 11. Jimmy had a big win, and I couldn't acknowledge it just because there was so much good stuff coming from the managers that won. So, really well done by everybody this week. You can tell how hard they're working going into week 15, and we obviously have so much more ahead of us, but I couldn't be more impressed right now. Obviously, frustrated from a managerial standpoint, but as a commissioner, I couldn't be more impressed and proud. Well done by you and the rest of this league. Great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And next week, we're going to be off because it is the long week and the All-Star break. So enjoy the All-Star break. We're not going to do a show. We'll come back the following week at some point with Week 15's review. Benji, I thank you again for being here with me, my friend. And thank you guys all for being here and making this league exactly what it is. We could not do this without you. So thank you all so very much for working as hard as you do and playing this game as competitively as you do. Until next time, guys, it's been real, it's been fun, and it is always real fun in the bigs. We'll see you next time.